My name is Maya Wallace, and there is one sound I will never forget for as long as I live. It was not my son's first cry. It was not the ambulance siren or the hospital monitors. It was the sound of my husband's SUV pulling away from our driveway, while I stood there with my water running down my legs, one hand wrapped around my stomach, silently praying that my baby would stay alive long enough for someone, anyone, to help me. Less than 24 hours later, that same man was calling me over and over again, begging me to answer. His dream vacation was over. His career was falling apart. His parents were blaming me for everything. And all because one person had witnessed exactly what happened in that driveway. But before I tell you how his perfect life collapsed, tell me something. Where are you watching from today? And have you ever discovered someone's true character at the exact moment you needed them most? Because that's exactly what happened to me. The cruel truth is that Ethan didn't suddenly become selfish that morning. Looking back now, I realize the warning signs had always been there. I just kept calling them stress, work pressure, or a rough week, because admitting the truth was much more frightening. From the outside, Ethan Vance looked like the husband every woman dreamed about. He smiled in every photograph. He opened doors whenever other people were watching. At company dinners, he wrapped an arm around my waist and proudly told everyone he couldn't wait to become a father. On social media, he posted pictures of our baby's nursery, with captions about blessings, gratitude, and family. Thousands of people believed those posts. I did too. But cameras only captured moments. They never showed what happened after the guests went home and the front door closed. Inside our house in Greenville, South Carolina, I was 39 weeks pregnant and carrying far more than just a baby. I carried every responsibility inside that home. Every doctor's appointment was scheduled by me. Every insurance form was completed by me. Every diaper order, every baby bottle, every tiny outfit folded neatly into drawers. Me. While my feet swelled until I could barely wear shoes, I still cooked dinner almost every night. I washed clothes, cleaned bathrooms, compared pediatricians, packed our hospital bags, made freezer meals, read childbirth books alone, and every evening I reminded Ethan about one simple thing. The car seat still isn't installed. He always answered the same way. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into next week. Next week became stop worrying so much. Then suddenly there were only days left before my due date. Ethan worked as a regional sales manager for a company that built its entire image around family life. His presentations were filled with smiling parents, happy children, camping trips, backyard cookouts, and slogans about making memories together. Ironically, the man selling family values barely participated in his own family. Most evenings he came home, dropped his laptop beside the couch, loosened his tie, and asked the same question before he asked how I felt. What's for dinner? Sometimes my back hurt so badly I couldn't stand upright. Sometimes our baby kicked so hard I had to stop walking until the pain passed. Whenever I mentioned it, Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Pregnancy isn't supposed to be comfortable. Or, everyone gets tired. Or, my personal favorite, my mom never complained this much. His mother, Denise, had become an invisible third person in our marriage. She had an opinion about everything. Apparently, I rested too much, drank too much water, visited my doctor too often, bought unnecessary baby supplies, asked too much from Ethan. Whenever she visited, she'd look around the house as though inspecting a hotel room. If I could scrub floors while carrying Ethan, she'd say proudly, "There's no reason healthy young women today can't." Then she'd smile. Not the warm smile. The kind that looked friendly, but somehow made you feel smaller. Her husband Gerald was no different. According to him, Ethan worked hard enough to deserve peace whenever he came home. No one ever seemed concerned about whether I deserved peace. If I defended myself, Ethan accused me of disrespecting his parents. So eventually, I stopped defending myself. I started apologizing for things that weren't even my fault. I apologized for being tired, for crying, for asking for help, for existing while pregnant. The saddest part? I actually believed I was the problem. 1 week before my due date, Ethan stormed into the kitchen already irritated. "You forgot the snacks." I looked up from folding baby blankets. "What snacks?" "The ones Mom asked us to bring this weekend." Then came the list. Imported smoked almonds, protein bars, craft beer, his father's favorite chips, ice packs, golf towels, a special glove he'd mentioned weeks earlier. I stared at him in disbelief. "I can barely walk comfortably," he shrugged. "You've been home all day." Those 6 words hurt more than he could ever understand. Home, all day. As if being home meant resting. Instead of washing baby clothes, preparing meals, answering insurance calls, cleaning bathrooms, packing hospital supplies, timing contractions that had already started coming randomly, trying not to panic every time our son became unusually quiet for a few hours. Still, I picked up my purse, drove myself to Target, walked slowly through every aisle with swollen ankles, bought everything on his list, even found the expensive golf glove he'd wanted, because somewhere inside me there was still a foolish little voice whispering, "Maybe today he'll appreciate me. Maybe today he'll notice." At the checkout counter, the cashier smiled kindly. "When are you due?" I smiled back. "Very soon." I didn't realize how true those words were. Outside, I struggled to lift the heavy case of beer into the trunk. Halfway through, I nearly dropped it. Before it hit the ground, another pair of hands caught it. "Maya?" I turned. It was our neighbor, Mira Caldwell. She lived 2 houses away with her husband Russell. Unlike most neighbors who simply waved from a distance, Mira actually noticed people. She noticed the dark circles under my eyes, the way I kept rubbing my lower back, the way I breathed carefully between movements. Without saying another word, she loaded every bag into my trunk. "Where's Ethan?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Working." She looked at me for several seconds, not judging, just noticing. Then she quietly said something that stayed with me long after she walked away. "Busy men can still choose to be kind." I nodded politely, but those words echoed in my head during the entire drive home. Busy men can still choose to be kind. I wondered why hearing that sentence made my chest hurt. When I returned home, Ethan never thanked me. He looked inside the grocery bags, picked up the almonds. Wrong brand. He tasted the pasta salad I'd made. Too bland. He tried on the golf glove. Perfect fit. Still no thank you. 10 minutes later, he packed everything into his car and announced he was driving to his parents' house because his mother had made roast chicken. I deserve one decent meal before life gets crazy. The front door closed behind him. Silence filled the kitchen. I sat alone at the table, staring at a tiny blue bib lying beside my plate. For the first time, I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for months. Why was I working so hard to earn love that should have been given freely? I didn't know it then, but that question was about to change my entire life. The next evening, Ethan walked through the front door, wearing a smile that instantly made my stomach tighten. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile he wore whenever he had already made a decision, and expected everyone else to accept it without discussion. I was sitting on the couch, with a heating pad pressed against my lower back, finishing thank you cards from my baby shower. For one hopeful second, I thought maybe he'd finally arranged his paternity leave. Maybe he'd called the pediatrician like he'd promised. Maybe he'd realized our son's arrival was more important than another weekend with his parents. Instead, he tossed his keys onto the counter and said casually, "Good news, Mom upgraded the vacation. I looked up. What vacation? The Scottsdale Golf Resort. He sounded excited, like a little boy talking about Christmas morning. Dad found a better package. 3 days instead of 2. 5-star resort. They already booked our tea times. I blinked. Ethan, my due date is next week. He waved his hand dismissively. Due dates aren't exact. I waited for him to laugh, to admit he was joking. He never did. My doctor literally told me I could go into labor at any time. First babies are usually late. I could have our son tomorrow. You probably won't. The conversation should have ended right there. Any loving husband would have canceled the trip without another word. Instead, Ethan crossed his arms. The tickets are non-refundable. Those 4 words would later become famous. They simply broke something inside me. I stared at him. So you're actually planning to leave the state while I'm about to give birth? He sighed dramatically. Maya, you're making this into a bigger deal than it is. A bigger deal? Yes. Our son could arrive while you're hundreds of miles away. He rubbed his forehead as though I were exhausting him. You have neighbors. I need my husband. You have Uber. I need the father of my baby. You have doctors. I need you. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Ethan spoke the sentence that changed how I looked at him forever. I refuse to let fatherhood become a prison before the baby is even born. I couldn't believe what I just heard. Prison? Was becoming a father really how he viewed our child? Before I could answer, his phone rang. His mother's name appeared on the screen. Without hesitation, Ethan placed the call on speaker. Did you tell her? Denise asked. I did. And? Ethan rolled his eyes dramatically. She's overreacting. Denise laughed softly. First-time mothers always think the world stops because they're pregnant. I felt heat rising into my face. I'm sitting right here. I know, dear. Her voice sounded sweet enough to fool strangers. It no longer fooled me. You need to understand something, Maya. What? My son deserves one last chance to relax before diapers and sleepless nights take over. I looked at Ethan. He didn't defend me. He didn't interrupt. He simply stood there listening. Then Gerald's voice echoed somewhere in the background. Tell her women have babies every day. Denise laughed again. There you go. I finally spoke. This isn't about vacations. No, it's about priorities. There was a pause. Then Denise replied with icy calm. The baby isn't even here yet. I looked directly at Ethan. But your husband is already acting like he isn't. The call ended a few minutes later. Not because the conversation was resolved, because Ethan simply walked away. For the next several days, the atmosphere inside our home became unbearable. He barely spoke to me. Every request became an inconvenience. Every conversation became an argument. The hospital bag by the front door annoyed him. My pregnancy pillow annoyed him. Even hearing me breathe through contractions seemed to irritate him. Then came the car seat. After weeks of begging, Ethan finally installed it. Poorly. The straps twisted. The base wasn't secured. The angle was wrong. I quietly told him, I think this needs to be redone. He threw the instruction manual onto the seat. If you're such an expert, do it yourself. Then he walked back inside. I stood alone in the driveway beneath the afternoon sun. 39 weeks pregnant. Sweating. Breathing through back pain. Watching tutorial videos on my phone because the man who helped create this child couldn't spare 15 minutes to make sure our baby would be safe. Halfway through the installation, someone called my name. Maya? It was Mira again. She carried a container of homemade chicken noodle soup in one hand and fresh banana bread in the other. I figured you could use dinner. Then she noticed what I was doing. Why are you installing the car seat alone? I tried smiling. Ethan's busy. She looked toward the house. The television was visible through the front window. Golf highlights. Ethan wasn't working. He wasn't sick. He wasn't injured. He simply didn't want to help. Mira didn't say anything cruel. She simply set the food on the porch and knelt beside me. Together, we tightened the straps correctly. When we finished, she placed one hand gently over mine. She paused. Call me. I looked at her. Anytime, day or night. I don't want to bother you. You won't. I couldn't ask that. You don't have to ask. There are moments in life when kindness feels almost painful because you've gone so long without receiving it. That was one of those moments. I nearly cried, not because of the car seat, because a neighbor had shown me more compassion in 10 minutes than my husband had shown in months. That night, Ethan announced he was meeting friends. One last guy's night. He laughed while grabbing his keys. After this, my freedom's officially over. Freedom. Another word that made fatherhood sound like punishment. He returned after midnight, smelling of beer, grilled food, and cigarette smoke. By then, I'd already spent 2 hours timing contractions. They were irregular. Close enough to frighten me, far enough apart that the hospital told me to wait. I sat upright in bed, trying to breathe through them. Ethan climbed under the blanket, rolled onto his side, and fell asleep within minutes. He never once asked why I was awake. Never noticed the tears on my face. Never asked whether I was okay. Lying there in the darkness, I reached down and rested my hand over my stomach. Our son kicked gently. I've got you, I whispered. Even though, deep inside, I wasn't sure anyone had me. Morning arrived far too quickly. Before sunrise, I woke to the sound of suitcase wheels scraping across the hallway floor. Ethan was already dressed. Golf shirt, khaki shorts, expensive sunglasses hanging from his collar. His suitcase stood beside the front door. The same front door where my hospital bag had waited for days. I slowly sat up. A dull pressure wrapped around my lower back. Something felt different. Ethan. He glanced toward me. What? I don't feel right. He zipped his suitcase. You're nervous. No. I think something's happening. He checked his watch. We need to leave in 20 minutes. We. Not us. Him and his parents. I stood carefully. Another wave of pressure rolled through my body. I really wish you'd stay. He sighed loudly. I'm serious. I can't organize my entire life around your anxiety. Those words landed harder than I expected, because they told me exactly what he believed. My fear wasn't real to him. My pain wasn't real. My pregnancy wasn't real. Only his inconvenience was. I followed him outside anyway. Some foolish part of me still believed seeing me might change his mind. Maybe once he looked into my eyes. Maybe once he remembered I was carrying his son. Maybe. A sudden warmth spread down both of my legs. I froze. For one confused second, I thought I'd spilled something. Then I looked down. Clear fluid soaked through my leggings. Drops splashed onto the driveway. My breathing stopped. Ethan. He turned. My water, I whispered. Just broke. His eyes widened. I saw panic. Hope rushed through me. He's going to help. He's choosing us. He's finally choosing us. I reached for the passenger side door. Ethan grabbed an old towel from the garage shelf. Not to help me, to wipe the leather seat. I just had the interior detailed. I stared at him. I need the hospital. I know. Please. My parents are already waiting at the airport. Another contraction slammed through my body. I doubled over, gripping the side of the SUV. Ethan. Listen. His voice sounded irritated. Call an Uber. I looked at him in disbelief. What? The tickets are non-refundable. He actually said it. looking directly into my eyes while I stood in active labor. He kept talking. First babies take forever. The doctors will handle everything. I'll only be standing around the hospital doing nothing. I reached for the door handle again. He stepped between me and the vehicle. Don't. I need to sit down. You're soaked. His eyes dropped to my wet clothes. I don't want that all over the seats. For several seconds, neither of us moved. That was the exact moment my marriage ended. Not because he drove away, because I realized he cared more about leather upholstery than the woman carrying his child. Slowly, I lowered my hand from the door. I stopped begging. I stopped arguing. Another contraction bent me forward. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat, rolled down the window, and spoke one final sentence. Text me after you get checked in. Then he drove away. I stood alone in the driveway, watching the SUV disappear around the corner. The street became strangely quiet. Birds chirped. A delivery truck rolled past. Someone across the road watered flowers. The world continued exactly as before. Only mine had completely fallen apart. I don't remember reaching for my phone. I only remember my hands shaking so badly that it took 3 attempts to unlock the screen. Another contraction hit. The pain stole my breath. For a terrifying moment, I wondered if I was going to give birth right there on the driveway. There was only one name in my contacts I trusted. Mira. I pressed call. She answered before the first ring had even finished. Maya? Another contraction interrupted me. My water broke. There was complete silence for less than a second. Then her voice became calm and confident. I'm coming. No questions, no hesitation, no excuses. I'm coming. Less than a minute later, her front door flew open. She ran across the street carrying clean towels and her car keys. The moment she saw me, her expression changed. She didn't waste time asking where Ethan was. She already knew. She wrapped a towel around my shoulders, even though it was warm outside. Lean on me. I can't. Yes, you can. She helped me take slow, careful steps toward her car. She opened the passenger door. She looked at my face and smiled gently. You're not alone anymore. Those 5 words broke something inside me. The tears I had been holding back finally escaped. Not because of the contractions, because someone had chosen me. On the drive to St. Agnes Medical Center, Mira stayed unbelievably calm. One hand remained on the steering wheel. The other occasionally squeezed mine whenever another contraction came. She called the labor and delivery unit using the car's hands-free system. We're about 15 minutes away, she told them. First pregnancy, water has broken, contractions are getting closer together. The nurse asked several questions. Mira answered every single one. You've done this before? I asked weakly. She smiled. I used to be a labor and delivery nurse. I closed my eyes. For the first time all morning, I felt safe. Hospital staff were already waiting outside with a wheelchair. Everything happened quickly. Nurses checked my blood pressure. Another nurse helped me into a hospital gown. Someone asked for insurance information. Someone else monitored the baby's heartbeat. Strong, healthy. A young nurse smiled warmly. Where's your support person? Without thinking, I looked toward Mira. She's right here. The nurse glanced toward the hallway. And your husband? I swallowed. My husband isn't coming. She didn't ask another question. She simply nodded with quiet understanding. Then she lowered her voice. Would you like us to place visitor restrictions on your room? I answered without hesitation. My husband. I paused. And his parents. The nurse typed something into the computer. It's done. That simple sentence felt strangely powerful. Someone respected my boundaries without arguing about them. Mira helped me call my parents in Denver. My mother answered cheerfully. Hi, sweetheart. The moment she heard me crying, her voice changed. Maya? Mom, the baby's coming. Oh my goodness. I tried to stay strong. Then I whispered the words I had been avoiding. Ethan left. Silence. Heavy. Painful. Finally, my father came onto the phone. What happened? My voice cracked. He went to the airport. There was another long silence. When my father finally spoke, his voice was calm. Too calm. We're booking the first flight. Dad, you don't worry about us. But, we're coming. Then he added something I'll never forget. You will never face today alone. Labor erased time. Minutes became hours. Pain came in waves. Every contraction felt stronger than the last. Mira never left. She held my hand, helped me breathe, reminded me I was stronger than I believed. Somewhere during labor, my phone began vibrating constantly. Message after message. Ethan, boarding now. Everything okay? Answer your phone. Mom says you're ignoring us. Stop being dramatic. I ignored every single one. My son needed me more than my husband ever had. Then another message appeared. Ethan, why are people calling me? A few minutes later, why is Mom crying? Then, what did you tell everyone? I frowned. I hadn't told anyone anything. I didn't have the energy. I barely knew what day it was. Whatever was happening, it wasn't coming from me. Several hours later, my parents rushed into the hospital. My mother hugged me carefully. My father kissed my forehead. Neither of them asked where Ethan was. They already knew. The disappointment in my father's eyes hurt more than any contraction. Not because he blamed me, because he finally understood exactly who Ethan was. Late that evening, after hours of labor, our son finally entered the world. He announced himself with one loud, angry cry. The nurse gently placed him against my chest. Everything else disappeared. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, the driveway, the airport, the golf trip. None of it mattered for that one perfect moment. Tiny fingers wrapped around mine. His breathing slowed as he rested against my heart. Tears streamed down my face. Hi, sweetheart, I whispered softly. You made it. Then I looked into his tiny face and quietly said the name I had carried in my heart for months. Leo. Leo. My mother started crying. My father quietly turned away to hide his own tears. Neither of them questioned my decision, because they understood. Family isn't decided by blood alone. It's decided by who shows up. Later that evening, while Leo slept peacefully beside me, my phone rang again. Ethan. Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice exploded through the speaker. Maya, finally. I stayed silent. What is happening? More silence. Why is everyone sending me videos? I looked at Leo sleeping peacefully. Still, Ethan never asked if his son was healthy. He never asked if I was alive. He never asked whether labor had been difficult. His first concern was himself. My boss called. My parents are freaking out. People are messaging me. What did you do? I closed my eyes. The answer came surprisingly easily. I didn't do anything, Ethan. Then why is this happening? I looked down at my newborn son. Because actions eventually introduce themselves. He started talking again. Talking over me, defending himself, explaining, blaming, panicking. I never raised my voice. I simply interrupted once. "Are you going to ask about your son?" Silence. 3 long seconds. Then, Is he okay?" Too late. Much too late. "He's perfect," I whispered, "and he'll never know what it feels like to be abandoned." Then I ended the call. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Because I finally understood something. Some relationships don't end when someone leaves. They end the moment you stop making excuses for them. And although I didn't know every detail yet, outside that hospital room, a single security camera had already started changing Ethan's life forever. The consequences were only beginning.